olwaleero nakedde wano ssaawa zinaaba ku 5 nabadde n'ensonga zange 3 ezandeese. Ensonga esooka Mulamuzi Kisaakye yaŋŋambye jjo alina ensala yange gy'agenda okuwa omusawo gwe nasaba Owiny Dolo okuva mu musango ogwo. Teyagiwadde jjo lwa nsonga yatunyonyodde nti Owiny Dolo yabadde awambye fayiro ye n'agiggalira. Kakati paati eyo n'esigalayo. Kati nga nze nfuna luligeyo okuba twabadde mu kkooti omulamuzi n'akiraga bulungi nti njafuna ensala yange leero. Ekyokubiri, leero nkedde kuwabira abalamuzi ba Supreme Court Owiny Dolo mu kakiiko akaba Service Commission ku nneeyisa yaabwe gye beeyisizzamu. Mu mateeka oli bw'omukolako ekintu olina okikola okumuwaako kopi nga nze kubaako kopi zaabwe. Ekyokusatu nawabira gavumenti ya Uganda ku by'okulonda kwe yateeka okw'ekimpatiivu. Neteekamu okubuuzaako kwayo mbadde ndeese okuddamu kwange kiba kitalijoyinda. Tuleke mu kooti ya East Africa kuba naye yeetuula wano. Baŋŋambye wonna wonna waggale. Ne mbagamba kooti ya East Africa y'amawanga 6 mu kiggala nayo tugiggadde. Ye kooti ya Uganda eggala etya nga ofisi zonna nzigule nga tebannyonnyola. Wayiseewo essaawa 2 Mukama n'atulama omulamuzi n'avaayo n'ajja n'atugamba nti baategese kooti yayo baagijjewo n'akaakalo bajjo bagijjewo. N'atugamba yategese kooti ey'omu kizimbe asomeremu ensala ye naye bw'amaze ogigira ne batugaana okuyinga. Era agenze okukinoonyerezaako kyonna ye nga kuya kooti nga takimanyi n'egisitula nga takimanyi. N'akireka ne Owiny Dolo yagaanye abantu okuyingira mu kooti. Era n'atugamba nti kimenya mateeka tugamba kirengeza ssemateeka wa Uganda okuba nti kooti ey'abantu eggalwa olw'okuba omuntu tayagala abantu bayingire. So naye aŋŋambye ajja kumpa nsala yange wiiki ejja ajja kuntegeeza olunaku. Naye nga bino byonna biraga nti enfuga y'amateeka mu Uganda egenda esereba kuba kati olabira ddala wano wennyini abantu balina okufuna essuubi. Bwebeera bamubbi eyo yonna wano bafunira ki justice. Naye kati nawe wano wakoze eki wafuuse makono. So katulinde ekiraddako naye nga bino byonna bimenya amateeka era ndowooza ku ssaawa entuufu tujja bivunaana Owiny Dolo ne banne mu kooti ya gundi ya East Africa. Kuba Owiny Dolo namukubira essimu yaganye okukwata nga amubuuze lwaki osibye kooti. Ne nkubirako ekyessimu n'aŋŋamba nja kuddira nga mugaba abapoliisi bo bali wano okumenya amateeka. Teeka ki omupoliisi lyalina eriggala kooti kyagiggadde. Ŋŋambye awo omupoliisi abadde abakulira ne mugamba manye nnaabiri ndaga ekyo wano ku Dolo kyeyawandiise kiggala kooti nga talina kyaki. Ne mugamba nti gwe nkuwaabira ng'omuntu kuba kati tolina kiwandiiko kyonna wabula g'ogadde kooti. So ebikolwa ebyo bya kiyayiya ebiri awo ate ng'eno kooti eyesuubira okuba nga yabuvunaanyizibwa.
In English, that bit of you and the police where you were asking that you maybe sue.
Yes, when I came here, I asked the police, it was commanded by one ASP now, why they were closing the doors. He said the courts are not working. I asked why. I called Owiny Dolo on his mobile phone, he refused to answer. I called Paul Lokech, the Deputy Inspector General of Police. I asked him, Lokech, does police have powers to lock a public court on a working day? He said, let me call them and I get back to you. He has not got back to me. And then I told Nabide that you are liable to be sued in personal capacity because you don't have any order from Dolo to close the court. Even if it was that, it would be illegal. Dolo has no powers to close Ugandan courts. To close Ugandan courts to the public, when it's on a public holiday, they are not on strike, so there's no industrial action, but he's saying the courts are closed. So these officers, I think they are personally liable, especially this one who was commanding. I've spent here 2 hours. I'm a litigant, I'm entitled to fair hearing. I'm supposed to get my judgment. But why am I not getting it? Because there's some police officer put him on black. He says you cannot access the premises.
Thank
Uganda.
Kadongo. Wewe kwali.
Aha, ni abuze. Ndoza.
No, just begin with English. Are you guys upset?
Hmm?
Okay, just tell us what happened.
I think Justice Kisaakye has made it so clear.
No, don't.
Yeah.
Put her speech aside. For you, what happened? You came to do what exactly?
This morning, I came here before 11 a.m. for 3 purposes. The first purpose was to receive my ruling by Justice Kisaakye in my recusal application against Owiny. The application was heard by 9 justices. Part of it was decided by Owiny as a person, and the other 8 made their ruling. So the remainder of that ruling was Justice Kisaakye's ruling, which was not delivered the other day on Wednesday. Yesterday, when she delivered her dissenting ruling, she said she would do my ruling today at 11 because her file had been confiscated by the Chief Justice, so she could not access that ruling. Secondly, this morning, I have dragged Chief Justice Dolo, 7 justices of this court, and the registrar for the Judicial Service Commission, seeking for their disciplinary action, owing to the events which happened yesterday at the court. So I'd come here to serve them with copies of those letters since I'd complained against them. Thirdly, I'd come to file my rejoinder in my case in the South African Court of Justice, where I'm challenging the election results and the process of disconnecting internet and everything. Before the defense, I'd come to file my rejoinder. Unfortunately, on reaching here, the gate was closed. They said the court is not working. I asked everybody how a court of law cannot work on a working day. No answer was given. Judges were coming in and out, court staff were going in and out. So we have been here up for I think now it's past 1, until when the judge had to come outside the gate because we had no access and told us that actually she had prepared the courtroom up, the Supreme Court room, for me to go and receive my ruling. She waited for me, I could not be seen until when she was informed that we are held up out here. So she came on that gestures. But you can see how the set of rule of law in Uganda is collapsing. That the whole Supreme Court can close its doors from the public. Another important thing is this court hosts the East African Court of Justice, an international organ with real obligations with Kenya, Rwanda, and Tanzania. Now it has also been closed from the public. So I think this is so disheartening, this is so disastrous for our rule of law, and of course it proves that actually Owiny Dolo is not fit to be in this office, Chief Justice.
We are ready.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mabirizi and members of the press. It's unfortunate that I have to address you here in front of the gates of the Supreme Court of Uganda. And I've come here to make a very brief statement. It's a sad day for our country that the unconstitutional events that started unfolding yesterday in the premises of the Supreme Court are continuing today. Yesterday, when I was reading my consolidated ruling, which covered the ruling on the recusal application filed by Mr. Mabirizi, I specifically stated that I could not, it had not been called yesterday, and I could not pronounce my ruling on it. I discovered Mr. Mabirizi introduced himself in court, and when I discovered that he was in court, I made an order that I would deliver that part of the ruling today at 11 a.m. When I arrived at the court this morning, the tent where the court has been sitting was being dismantled. That was understandable because the court has been hired, the tent was being hired, of course, at great expense. And the reason why the court had moved to the tent was because we are operating during COVID times, when we were having high numbers of people, parties, and lawyers, and the judges sitting at the same time. So I immediately talked to the court supervisor and requested that the Supreme Court courtroom on the second floor be prepared for me to deliver the remainder of my ruling. And I'm glad to report that the court was accordingly prepared. I waited in my chambers for Mr. Mabirizi to show up in the courtroom so that I could also go to the courtroom. As I address you now, he's coming to 1 o'clock, almost 2 hours later. And I received a call from one of you saying you are waiting outside. Ordinarily, the judges are not supposed to work through the meeting. But at the same time, I cannot keep quiet when we are seeing these kinds of things unfolding when the Chief Justice is actually in residence. I made inquiries from the registrar. He's not party to the closing of the court. I am the administrative judge of this court, and I have not made this directive. This is the Chief Justice's court, and he's in his office. So I inquired from the police officers, I will not mention the name, why the gates of the Supreme Court are being locked, 1 to our litigants, and 2 to the members of the public, because my understanding of public includes the media. We have just concluded a presidential election petition where you had access to the court, and the recusal application I'm supposed to read was filed under the same petition. So I am very, very surprised that somebody has ordered an unprecedented closure of the Supreme Court of Uganda to the public when the Chief Justice of Uganda is in residence, and for 2 hours he has done absolutely nothing to change this unconstitutional and unlawful order. So it's against the practice of judicial officers to refrain from speaking to the press. I have been forced to come and address you because Mr. Mabirizi was supposed to receive a ruling from me. And apparently this is continuing because there has been an effort to gag me to read my ruling, which is unconstitutional. I also wanted to make another, now that I'm here, I also wanted to correct an impression which has been given by the official spokesperson of the judiciary, Solomon Muyita, who, without talking to me, went ahead yesterday to speak to the press, and who has also issued a statement maligning my name when he doesn't have the facts. I will at an appropriate time issue my own statement about the developments that led to yesterday's events. And since Mr. Muyita, the judiciary spokesperson, has proved to be inclined either to speak from an uninformed position or to speak on orders of powers that be, from now on I'll take the responsibility to communicate the position that I hold to the press directly. But the official position as of now is that my file, which was confiscated yesterday, has not been returned to me. This morning, I went to the registry to recover the file, and I was informed by the court office staff that the file was not returned. This is the place where files are supposed to be kept if they are not kept in the judge's chambers. I inquired from one of our registrars who is in office. He was not aware about the file. The registry staff informed me that they had left the files in the boardroom, which I checked yesterday, and the files were not there. morning, I went back and checked in the boardroom, and the files are not there. So I'm left with no conclusion that my file has been confiscated, is still being confiscated by none other than the Chief Justice of Uganda. Because yesterday, as I approached the tent, his security detail, which is attached to him for his personal security, is the one which removed the files from the tent where the court has been sitting. And it's very unfortunate. So since the files are not in the official registry, I tried to access the Chief Justice, he was engaged. I tried to access his personal assistant, he was not in office. But the position as of now is that my file is still confiscated unconstitutionally. And that is very, very unfortunate. So with those, no, I'm not going to address Uganda. So with those words, I want to say to the litigant who was supposed to receive his ruling that I will deliver his ruling at sometime next week on a date that I will communicate to him. I hope the communication in his has since he's unrepresented, I'm sure there is an address that where his official telephone number and whatever other contacts are indicated. So the communication will be to him. And as for you, the members of the press, you and I know the provisions of the Constitution. This court is a public court. No one has the authority to lock it during office hours. That is not the judiciary, that the people who made the Constitution, or the people of Uganda, that's not the judiciary that was envisaged. And it's very, very unfortunate that this is happening under the watch of none other than the Chief Justice of Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you, my lord.
Any question?
Not really.
No, I think I will stop there. The rulings of the court are delivered in person, and that's the decision I've made. And I don't see why the litigant cannot receive his ruling in person. That's a decision that I will need to make, and I've not been contacted to know why this gate has been closed to litigants or to the public for accessing, for purposes of conducting the business of the court.
Thank you, madam.